Hello, everyone. My name is Trina Rimmer, and I'm a Senior Manager of Marketing and Customer Engagement at Articulate. Articulate builds the world's most popular online training apps, including Rise.com. I just want to welcome you to today's webinar, where we're going to talk about how to create exceptional mobile learning. Helping me out in the Q&A panel today is my colleague Jessica Biblis, our Senior Marketing Manager for Rise. You'll also see a chat panel. We'll be using both of those panels today. So with that, I'm going to leave my slide behind, and we will go ahead and pop over to Rise. Okay, cool. So before we get started today, I wanted to ask you all a quick question. You can respond in the chat, but how many times have you personally reached for your mobile phone so far today? I know it's a lot for me. 0, more than 25, more than that? If you just want to pop your responses into the chat, that would be super cool. I see I'm not alone in probably being in the over 50 category. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of being very dependent on my devices. I think I even have a tagline on my Twitter profile that says my iPhone is my bestie, and that's probably true. Good to know I'm not alone. The reason I bring this up, though, is not so much just to talk about how we all have a dependency on our mobile devices, but to reinforce an important point, which is if you really stop and think about it, it wasn't that long ago that companies were actually debating the role of mobile devices in supporting their people's learning. For instance, back in 2014, we surveyed our customers, and 67% of them at the time said that they were being asked to create mobile learning. So almost 70%, and that was 6 years ago and pre-COVID. So just imagine how much has changed since then. You know, the COVID pandemic has really forced a profound shift in our thinking around mobile learning. Overnight, every organization has had to embrace it. There was no choice. Yesterday's expectation from learners that their training should work on mobile devices is really now an imperative. Companies simply cannot train their people without making their training mobile friendly. So mobile learning is really critical right now. And it's critical for a number of reasons. For one, our daily schedules have had to flex to accommodate taking care of children and elderly family members, even our friends. We've also had to adjust to entirely new ways of navigating the world, our work life and our personal lives. We're all trying to manage our home and work responsibilities simultaneously, so we really can't afford to be tied to desks to learn. And even beyond the current crisis, mobile learning is going to continue being a critical tool for business. That's especially true as many employers make remote work the default and not the exception. You know, employers need to retain workers. They need to retrain them on how to work safely or work differently with different pivots in their business models and operations. And we're seeing this. For instance, employers like Twitter and Facebook and Shopify are just a few of the many companies that have told their people to work from home indefinitely. And of course, deskless workers really don't have the luxury of accessing online training from a desktop computer. So it just makes sense to create online training that's easily accessible from any device a learner might use. You know, if today's workers can't learn on the go from a mobile device, or their learning experience is just bad, they probably aren't going to bother. And that's why we're here today. In this session, I'm going to show you how to create exceptional mobile learning experiences quickly and easily, and I'm going to walk you through how the process of creating mobile learning has evolved over the years. How Rise, a modern online training system, can help you achieve in hours what used to take months or weeks to do. And I'm going to walk you through a simple process that anyone can use to quickly and easily create, share, and manage their mobile learning. And of course, we will save some time at the end of today's session for some Q&A. But if you do have your questions as we go along, please feel free to pop them into that Q&A panel. And again, our team will try to answer them for you as we go. Back in 2014, when we did that survey I mentioned a moment ago, most online training was created with a combination of apps and systems. So when it came to creating mobile learning, there were some really big challenges that went along with this multi-app approach. So first, authoring apps were kind of complicated. Because authoring apps were complicated to learn and use, there really wasn't an easy way to engage contributors or subject matter experts in the training development process. So this meant that training professionals were in the difficult role of being course developers and training project managers. So they spent a lot of their time coaxing source material out of their busy contributors and subject matter experts, and then spend even more time constantly negotiating how to rework that content to make it more engaging for online training. So this push and pull dynamic was exhausting for everyone involved, and it really slowed down the training development process. Also, most authoring apps weren't really designed for mobile learning. While most mobile devices deliver scrolling experiences, those desktop apps created more slide-based training that looked and felt more like a PowerPoint. And many required e-learning developers to tweak every single slide of for every different mobile device that a learner might use. So in many cases, course developers actually ended up creating multiple versions of the same course for different devices. And of course, that meant creating and maintaining desktop, smartphone, tablet versions of the same courses for tons of different devices or orientations. And obviously, all of this really added to the cost and time to create mobile learning. Also, creating mobile learning was just costly. Some training teams actually kind of realized that this was over their heads from a technical standpoint and that they needed to get help from vendors. So they sought out mobile-friendly off-the-shelf content from vendors, but this approach also has some downsides because at that point in time, off-the-shelf vendor content wasn't customizable. And if you needed something that was custom mobile learning, you were usually forced to outsource it to a pricey boutique design firm. When it was all said and done, whether you were buying something off the shelf or hiring someone to create custom mobile learning for you, at the end of the day, there was still no guarantee that your course would play well with your LMS. And that leads me to my final point. It didn't play well because most LMS platforms were never designed to deliver content on mobile devices. And if they were updated to accommodate mobile users, it almost always ended up in a really frustrating experience. So I think it's important to keep in mind that this whole training development approach was really messy. It just relied on a tech stack that's overly complicated and frankly outdated. Creating, managing, and delivering online training, especially on mobile devices, simply wasn't a sustainable or scalable process. It didn't work well for training professionals, and it really wasn't a good way to maximize ROI, the ROI of training for businesses either. And that is why we created Rise, and it's the app that I've been showing you as I've been talking today. So Rise is really a game changer. It's an all-in-one training system that makes online training easy to create, enjoyable to take, and simple to manage. And Rise was designed with mobile learners in mind. Everyone on your team, from course creators to learners to managers to your IT department, they're all going to love Rise. So let me go ahead and show you how Rise works, and we'll talk about why it's the smartest choice for creating mobile learning. So because Rise Output automatically adapts to every device a learner uses, you simply create one course that works flawlessly on laptops, tablets, and mobile phones without doing anything extra. Learners can access their training from any modern web browser on any device. It's just a totally seamless, hassle-free learning experience that they will love. You can also, for the very first time in Rise, have access to gorgeous off-the-shelf content. It's included in your Rise subscription. It's yours to customize or use as is, and it's all right at your fingertips. You can choose from course templates, sample courses, and business content lessons. And we'll talk more about that as we go. However you decide to create your RISE course, when you're done, you'll simply publish and share it instantly with learners using any device. There's no separate system to wrangle. You can add your course to your library where learners can browse and take training as needed, or you can choose to actually assign it to your learners. They're automatically notified by email when they've been enrolled in a course. And RISE also gives you a straightforward way to track and report on how well your learners are doing in their training, how well they performed on the quizzes, or whether or not they completed the training that you've assigned to them. All of this means that there are no more complicated authoring apps to master, no more pricey and uneditable off-the-shelf courses to buy, and no more clunky old-school LMSs to fuss with. So now that we've talked about mobile learning and why RISE is the best way to create and share mobile learning, I want to talk with you about the process of actually creating mobile learning. So if you scour the web a little bit, you'll see that there are a lot of different approaches that people take for creating mobile learning. Almost all of them boil down to 3 basic steps: identifying the goal of your course, which also helps you measure its impact later on; gathering and prioritizing some essential content and messages to include in your course; and then, of course, creating your course in some sort of an app. So let's walk through each of these steps together. Obviously, before you start creating any kind of training, you really should be asking yourself, why do we need training? What is the goal? So for example, if you needed to create training in response to something like health and safety procedures for returning to the office, which is a very timely topic right now, then you're probably trying to minimize the risk of exposing your workers to COVID-19, or you're trying to avoid downtime, or you're trying to limit your company's legal exposure, or all of the above. All of these things are examples of training goals, or what your training needs to do. Taking time to really understand these goals can help you narrow in on what your learners really need to know and what actions they need to take or behaviors they need to change. For instance, if there's a gap in their skills, like not knowing how to properly wear a face mask, you might need to train them on that. Or maybe they need to be informed about new health screening processes to enter the workplace. That could be another goal of your training. Whatever those gaps are, taking the time to align your training content to those goals so that you address the gaps will help you create a relevant and effective learning experience. And once you have some specific goals as kind of your North Star, you're ready to gather your source material. So traditionally, as I mentioned earlier, source content tended to come from folks in your operation who are subject matter experts. So if we use the example of safety training for workers returning to the office, those subject matter experts might include your facilities team or your HR, maybe your emergency operations team, or even your company's legal department, or all of them. The type of content that you'll gather from them will vary, and it often takes many different forms, including PowerPoint slides, documents, PDFs, spreadsheets, equipment manuals, or sometimes links to other trusted resources like the World Health Organization or the Centers for Disease Control. The great thing about RISE is that not only can you incorporate all that content into your mobile learning course in RISE, but you also have another rich source of content in the form of templates, sample courses, and business content lessons. All of these are organized by common topics like communication, compliance, health and safety, and they're completely searchable as well. So let's take a quick moment to leave this behind, and I'm going to pop over to another tab here, and we will take a look at each of these. So here I am, I'm in RISE, I'm under the Create tab, and if I click on New Course, you'll see that I can choose to create a course from scratch. Or I can start with pre-built content, like the business lessons, the templates, or the samples. Let's go ahead and take a look at business content. With the business content, I can select from a wide variety of really gorgeous lessons on typical business training topics and then assemble them into a course. I can also customize them as I wish or use them alongside other lessons that I build from scratch. So for instance, here I've got a business content lesson on assessing your strengths. And when I click on that, I can actually scroll through and see a little preview of it. We'll take a closer look at these in just a moment. So let's go ahead and take a look at templates. You can find templates on a wide variety of topics to really kickstart the course development process. I love using templates because they include a course outline and headlines in every lesson, so you can see all the really important topics that should be covered by for the subject at hand. So if you don't know a whole lot about the topic, or you just want a way to save yourself some design time, having access to this outline so that you can see how to structure your course and make it effective is a huge time saver. And for sample courses, let's take a look at those. So you've got dozens of fully built, professionally written and designed sample courses to choose from here in Rise. You add a sample course to your Rise dashboard and customize it with your branding, or edit the content, or add your own content to it in minutes. This one that I'll search for now is on transitioning to remote work. So if I click preview, I can take a look at this and see what type of content is included in the course. It's fully built out. There's no placeholder content. It's completely designed for you and ready to go. So you can simply go in there and customize it for your needs. The other really cool thing about Rise is that we're constantly adding new content to Rise at no extra cost to you. So we even have a sample course that gives folks a head start on understanding COVID-19. So here, in fact, I have two courses. I have one on coping with stress and uncertainty, and one that focuses more on facts. So if we click preview on this, you can see we have a beautiful, fully built course that dispels myths, focuses on facts, and provides information and guidance for parents, businesses, travelers, you name it. So this is a free resource that's included with your Rise subscription. All right, go back here. So we're still here in step 2, where we've gathered and kind of prioritized some source content. We found some content that we can use perhaps in Rise. Let's go ahead and talk about the next step. So once you've identified all your source material, you really need to revisit your goals again, and then prioritize the information that directly supports your training goals. So what do your learners really need to know to hit the goals and fill the gaps? Source content that supports your goals definitely needs to make its way into your online training. Anything that's more sort of nice to know material can be set aside or referenced in your course as something that's more like optional reading. All right, so you've gathered and prioritized source content. Now's the fun part. You get to start creating your course, and I'm assuming you're going to want to create it in Rise. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and do that in Rise today. As I just showed you, one of the easiest ways to instantly create content in Rise is to start with pre-built lesson content. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to do with a course I'm already working on. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. And you can see I've started a course here on what you need to know about unconscious bias. I've got my title and my course description, and I've already got one business lesson in here. Let's go ahead and see if we can find another one on unconscious bias that fits well within this course. So I'm just going to type a title real quick. Just type, hit enter, and then click add content. And you'll see I have 3 options. I can add a lesson that I build from scratch. I can add business content, or I can add a quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and search business content and search these keywords. All right, so we've got a couple of different things. If I want to see what this content is, I can go ahead and preview this lesson and kind of scroll through and see if it is in line with what I'm looking for. And this looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and click select lesson and add to course. And you'll see that Rise is a really cool thing, and it actually changed the lesson title from my placeholder text of lesson 2 to the title of the business content lesson. So that was really cool. So let's go ahead and click Edit Content and take a closer look at the type of content in the business content lessons. So you'll note as I'm scrolling through here, actually I'll click Preview here so we can kind of see them as a learner would experience them. So I get some nice introductory instructional text, and then a beautiful high quality video. And then as I continue scrolling, beautiful images. And as we go along, there are even knowledge check questions like this one built in. So really cool, really effective, really beautiful and high quality. Let me play this video clip real quick just so you can get a sense of the type of content that's included in the videos.
Have you ever judged someone too quickly? Maybe you just met them and already have a snap idea about who they are and what they can do. It happens to almost all of us. We judge others and we get judged ourselves. So what's going on? Simply put, we're giving in to our unconscious biases, and if we're not careful, that can lead to some pretty hurtful discrimination.
So there you go, just a real quick sample of the video content. Obviously, these are super rich and really engaging. The other thing that I love is, again, you can mix and match business content with your own. And because you are here in Rise, you can also edit the business content lessons. These are fully customizable, so you can add your own company-specific information or jargon, you can reorder content, or you can add your own brand new content to this lesson. So obviously, pre-built lesson content really saves a lot of time. I love that you can kind of mix and match these, but let's go ahead and add some of my own content to this course. So I've got a lesson that I've actually already fleshed out in an outline. I'm going to go ahead and start building that out right now. We'll build it out from scratch together. So I'm calling this the real cost of unconscious bias, except I can't spell. There we go. All right, so click Add Type, click Add Content, and then I can just choose if I'm doing a lesson, business content, or a quiz. So in this case, it's going to be a lesson. Now, here I am. I'm basically at my blank screen. This is my blank canvas for me to start creating my lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding some blocks to my lesson. So blocks are modular components that you can customize with your content and rearrange. And you'll see that as we go along. And then you'll note that this blocks shortcut bar has some of the most frequently used block types here, but there's a whole library of additional blocks to choose from just by clicking this All Blocks button. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and add some text and a video. And of course, this little shortcut bar just keeps following me, which is super cool. And I want to add a knowledge check question. So I clicked on the All Blocks button, and I'm going to add a multiple choice question there. And let's go ahead and add a continue button to divide this up and break up the content a little bit. And I'll add an image. Let's see, what else do I want? Maybe some text. And let's do a label graphic because I have a diagram that I want to make a little more engaging for folks. All right, so I've laid in a bunch of content. You know, one of the things I really love about creating content in Rise is how fluid it is. I can be really indecisive if I want to be, because all of these are sort of placeholders for me to rearrange and customize as I'd love to do. So for instance, I'm actually now kind of rethinking the order of some of my choices. So I'm going to go ahead and move this content up just by clicking on these arrows. And you can see I can also duplicate blocks or just delete them entirely. So let's go ahead and go up one more, two more. There we go. I think I might just make this a subheading and then just make this my knowledge check. Done. So I can quickly change the type of block layout I've selected from this little shortcut menu. So here I can see with this thumbnail image exactly which kind I'm selecting. So I'm gonna stick with subheading for now. And then once I'm happy with how I've arranged everything, it's just a matter of customizing it with my content. So for instance, I've already got some content written out. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here and grab my introduction. And I have this just outlined in a Google Doc, nothing fancy. I'm going to change this to just a paragraph. And you'll see when I highlight the placeholder text, I have full text editing capabilities here in Rise. So once I paste this text in, Rise actually maintained the formatting from my Google Doc, but I can just remove that if I want to. There we go. Cool, so that's done. Now I want to go ahead and replace this placeholder video with a case study video of my own. So I'm going to click the edit button here on my video and click edit again and replace this video. And I'm actually going to do that with a video I've already got in my folder for the unconscious bias course. And while that's loading, I can start to work on other blocks in my lesson. So let's say I want to build out this knowledge check question. I've got all of my content here. There we go. There's my question text. And now my answer options. It just comes together so quickly. And the cool thing is you don't have to do it this way. This is the way I like to do it. But other folks might just want to build straight in Rise. You know, in other authoring apps, you need to storyboard so that you can kind of get your head straight on what it is that you're building. But because Rise is so flexible and so easy to create in, you don't really have to take that step. So I like to do outlining just to get my thoughts organized, but you don't really have to. So there, I've created my knowledge check question. Let's go ahead and adjust the settings on this continue block because I don't want folks to be able to skip around. So for this, I want to make sure that they complete that knowledge check question before they go to the rest of the lesson. So I'm just going to change the completion type to complete block directly above. And now they'll be prompted to complete that question before they move on. And for this one, I want to make this, I think, text on an image because I have a cool quote that I've pulled out. So here's my quote. I'm going to go ahead and include that here. Do some quick formatting. And because I've got text editing capabilities, I can make that text a little bit smaller if I want, and I can change out the background image. So this placeholder image is really cool, but if I want something a little bit different, I can go ahead and search for people talking and search in this content library that has literally millions of images to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. Boom, done. So as you can see, this is starting to come together really quickly. Let me show you how I can customize this labeled graphic, because this is a really, really cool interaction to include in your courses if you have a good use for it. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a different image here, something that's not part of this placeholder image. And there's my diagram on the steps to take to confront unconscious bias. And now I can simply click to add markers to this. And then those markers, as you can see, can contain all sorts of different types of content. I can even customize the marker style. So if I want this very first one to maybe be the steps in the process, I can change it to a numbered marker. There we go. Let's make that one 1. And we'll make this one step 2. And this one is step 3. And then I can add my descriptive text. I can also do things like add media. So I can upload an image, or I can search the content library. I can even embed from the web. So if I had a cool YouTube video that was expanding on resourcefulness, I could include that here. I can even record some audio if I want to include an audio clip here. So lots and lots of flexibility to customize this and have it be exactly what I want. Now, I haven't built this out fully, but just to show you what the experience is like in Rise when viewing this content. Obviously, we're looking at this in a laptop or desktop mode, but notice how Rise just fluidly reorients and optimizes content for different device sizes and orientations. So here we are on a tablet in portrait mode. We can rotate that device to a landscape mode and keep going through our course. And then when we get down here to mobile phone on a smaller screen device, again, Rise is kind of optimizing everything for us and making it look absolutely amazing so that there's a flawless experience for the learner. And when I click on things like this labeled graphic, notice that the marker content comes front and center. So it really takes and makes that learning content pop and become the focus for the learner. So it's really easy for them to see. And of course, Rise supports mobile gestures. So if you do happen to have a diagram on the screen that needs some pinch zoom, they can do that too. But this really is a good illustration of how Rise handles content responsively on different devices. All right, so let's say you've taken the time to create something really cool already and you want to integrate it into your lesson. Say you built it in another course or a different lesson, you want to repurpose that content. Let me show you a really cool way of doing that. So I'm back in my lesson that I've been putting together. I'm just going to click this plus icon and go here into the blocks library and select block templates. And you'll see here, I've got this unconscious bias scenario that I've built using our scenario block. And now I can just bring this in. Any changes I make to the scenario block in this lesson won't impact the original template. So I can tweak the scenario, I can create different characters, choose different background images or dialogue or feedback, or I can just use it as is. So this is a really powerful way to create content and repurpose it. I think this is also a really awesome feature for accelerating the process of building lessons with lots of similar content. And most importantly, you can share frequently used content across your team as well. So if you're a team of folks working on similar types of courses, you can all take advantage of each other's content and maintain more continuity as well. So let me go ahead and keep scrolling on here. Really, there you have it. I mean, I haven't completely built out this lesson, but I've gotten it really close to done. And we just did it in a matter of a few minutes. Not only am I able to really get this entire course off to a quick start, but with the business content lessons, I saved myself a ton of time because now I don't need to worry about writing that content and researching it and gathering it and getting it vetted. It's all right here. And my course is coming together beautifully. So I've been showing you how to create and customize lessons, but you might also be wondering how you can customize your entire course with things like colors and branding. And let me go ahead and walk you through that. That is done here on the Settings tab. So on the Settings tab, the very first tab you see here is the Theme tab. And you'll see options to customize your Rise course with things like an accent color. So I've got this beautiful orange here, but you can choose the accent color of your choice. You can even input the hex values for the color for your branding guidelines. So you can just pop that right in here and be totally on brand. Likewise, you can choose from any of the built-in headings or body fonts. They're all beautifully, they all pair beautifully with one another, or you can also upload and manage your own custom fonts. So important to note that as well. And then the next tab under settings is navigation. So here's where I can control how my learners will actually experience my course. So for instance, if I was creating a compliance course, I might change this drop down under navigation mode from free to restricted, and that would help make sure that my learners are taking the course in lesson order. On the translations tab, I can follow a simple 4-step process. It's all outlined right here, but essentially I'm just exporting my course to an XLIF file for translation, and then later I can import the translated XLIF file back into Rise to create different language versions of my content. I can also translate labels as well, or customize the labels here just by adding my own text. And very importantly, to really accelerate the course creation process, Rise also gives you easy collaboration. So now you can invite other folks on your team. So I'm inviting Jessica, who's helping out in the Q&A panel. I'm going to go ahead and invite her to be a collaborator on the course, and I can give her different levels of access. So right now she's a collaborator, but if I want to, I can give her a little more access to the course and make her a course manager. And now the two of us can work on it simultaneously or take turns, however we want to work, however we want to do it. So that's really awesome. So now let's talk about how to get your finished Rise course into the hands of your learners. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and click the Publish button. And here's where you'll specify a course completion trigger of some sort, whether that is a quiz. My course doesn't include one at this point in time, or if it's the number of or percentage of lessons completed. So in this case, I'm going to leave mine at 80%. And right down here, I can see that my course duration can appear. I've got that turned on. I'm just going to leave that there. There's also a completion celebration, which is, I think, like some confetti that appears on the screen when folks finish up. And there's even a certificate for course completion. I'm going to leave all those settings to on. I do want to set a due date for this, but instead of specifying an exact date, I'm just going to give it a certain number of days and make that 14 days. And I'll put library visibility to on. And now I'm ready to start adding some categories or assigning some categories for this course to live in the library. So I'm going to select HR here. And let's go ahead and, oops, that's my bad. Change that. Oops. Maybe not. We'll try a different due date here. All right, there we go. And now I have published my course. So once my course is published, this little green toggle shows me that my course is live in the library, and I can see all the other publishing settings sort of echoed here, all the decisions I made on that publishing options dialog. And at this point, I'm ready to start enrolling individual learners or entire groups of learners. So I actually already have a group set up here. So I'm just going to click Enroll Groups, and I'm going to select my customer service team and enroll them in the course. Now, again, if I wanted to, I could add additional groups, or I could even enroll additional individual learners here if I wanted to. I can also search for different groups of learners to enroll. So that's it. The folks I assigned this training to will get an email that notifies them that they've been enrolled in my Rise course. And now I can keep tabs on my learners by checking out my course reports right here on the reporting tab. The Rise reporting dashboard really gives me an easy way to see how my learners are interacting with my finished Rise course. And I can see things like who's completed the course and who hasn't. So with that, you know, Rise does the work of creating a great multi-device experience for your learners, but there are a couple of considerations I always like to point out when we're talking about creating training for delivery on mobile devices. So obviously you want to make sure that you're using video mindfully, because most of us really love consuming video on our mobile devices, but you do want to make sure that you're keeping your videos, your uploaded videos kind of short and the file size is small. It's just easier for folks to absorb, and it's also easier for folks who are accessing your course over a slower cellular connection. You'll also want to make sure you're choosing your images wisely. So I showed you building that labeled graphic with the diagram of a process. But if I was uploading an illustration of a highly detailed schematic with some tiny text, that could be really hard for folks to see, and it would sort of force them to use mobile gestures and Rise to see that. So just be really thoughtful about that and kind of keep that in mind. Also, people tend to consume information from their mobile devices in a moment of need, right before stepping into a big meeting, for instance. So when you're creating your mobile learning in Rise, just consider adding things like job aids or performance checklists that folks can refer to right when they need it. A lot of folks use Rise for not even building courses, although that is the most popular use of Rise, but they also use it for creating things like performance support tools as well. So I have covered a lot of ground today. Let's go ahead and recap a few of the things that we've talked about. So obviously, mobile learning is here to stay, and that's because the pandemic has forced a really profound shift in our collective thinking around mobile learning. Yesterday's expectation that training should work on mobile devices has become an imperative. And in the past, creating mobile learning was really complicated and it relied on an outdated tech stack. So creating, managing, and delivering online training, especially on mobile devices, simply wasn't a sustainable or scalable process. But we have changed all that with Rise. Rise is an all-in-one training system that makes training easy to create, enjoyable to take, and simple to manage. The three-step process for creating mobile learning involves defining what success looks like. What does your training need to do? Are there any gaps in people's skills or knowledge that you need to solve for with your training? An understanding of the goals of the training and what it's going to take to achieve them will really help you focus your content so that it's relevant, it's not overwhelming, and that you're not boring your learners. Step 2 of the process is to gather source material. Remember, one of the things that makes Rise so totally unique is that you get professionally designed training content that you can easily edit and customize, and it's all included with your subscription. Speaking of Rise, step 3 is to create your training. So I showed you how to do this in Rise. You can create your training from scratch, where in Rise you can also kickstart development with those fully customizable business lessons like I did, or you can use templates, or you can even customize a sample course. It's totally up to you. And when you're done, just publish your course and enroll your learners, either individually or in groups. Finally, using Rise reports is a great way to track your training and see how your learners are interacting with it. By comparing some information that you're getting in the Rise reports to other performance data in your organization, you can also reach some conclusions about how well your mobile learning is really impacting bottom line performance. So I've been talking a lot. Let's take a few moments